Elena Martinez was 34 years old when her life fell apart. She was a mother, a wife, a nurse at St. Vincent Medical Center. She went to Mass every Sunday. She prayed the Rosary with her mother as a child. But nothing in her life prepared her for what was about to happen. This is the story of a woman who made a promise to God, a desperate promise, a promise that would change everything. 40 nights, 40 Hail Marys, and an answer she never expected. A story that needs to be told, because some stories change everything. Elena grew up in East Los Angeles in a deeply Catholic Mexican-American family. Her mother, Rosa, prayed the Rosary every day at 6 in the evening, without fail. Elena grew up hearing those prayers, smelling candle wax, watching her mother with closed eyes, whispering to God. But as Elena grew older, life got busy. College, work, marriage. She still went to Mass, still considered herself Catholic. But the Rosary? It was forgotten. A relic of the past. Something her mother did, not her. Until March of 1989. That's when everything changed. Elena had a son, Miguel, 7 years old, big, curious eyes, a smile that lit up any room. And one afternoon in March, Miguel started complaining about a headache. It was nothing serious, she thought. Kids get headaches. She gave him children's pain medication, put him to rest. But the pain didn't go away. In the following days, Miguel started vomiting, losing his balance. His words became confused. Elena, as a nurse, knew something was very wrong. They rushed to the hospital, CT scan, MRI, and then the diagnosis: brain tumor, glioblastoma, aggressive, malignant. The doctors gave him 6 months, maybe less. Elena remembers standing in the hospital corridor, staring at nothing, while her husband, David, cried on the phone with family. She didn't cry. Not in that moment. She felt empty, as if something inside her had turned off. That night, she went home. Miguel was sleeping in the hospital room with her mother, Rosa, by his side. Elena went into her bedroom, locked the door, and for the first time in years, she knelt down. Not to pray. She didn't know how to pray anymore. She knelt because her legs couldn't hold her up anymore. And there, in the silence of the room, in the dark, she whispered, "God, if you're still there, I need you. I don't know what to do anymore. I need a miracle. Please." The next day, Elena returned to the hospital. Her mother, Rosa, was sitting beside Miguel's bed, holding her rosary. Elena sat down next to her. They stayed in silence for a while. Then Rosa, without taking her eyes off Miguel, said, "Mija, do you remember when I taught you to pray the rosary?" Elena didn't respond. Rosa continued,
I taught you because that's how we talk to Our Lady. That's how we ask for help when nothing else works. That's how we find peace, even when there is no peace. Elena looked at her mother. Tears finally began to flow. Mom, I don't know if it works. I don't know if God will listen. Rosa took Elena's hand, squeezed it tight. He always listens, mija. Always. But you need to talk to him. You need to open your heart. That night, Elena went home and searched through an old box in the closet. She found what she was looking for. A rosary. Old, dark wood. It was her grandmother's rosary, which had been passed to Rosa and then to Elena on the day of her first communion. She hadn't held it in over 10 years. Elena knelt at the edge of the bed. She held the rosary. The beads were worn, smooth from use. And she made a promise. God, I'm going to pray the rosary every day, for 40 days, without missing a single one. I'm doing this for Miguel, and I'm going to trust. I'm going to trust that you will take care of him, whatever your plan is. It was the night of March 24th, 1989. The journey of 40 days had begun.
In the first few days, it was difficult. Elena didn't remember the prayers correctly. She stumbled over the words. Her mind wandered. She thought about Miguel's tests, the treatments, the medical bills. But every night, at 9 o'clock, she knelt and prayed. Day 5. Miguel started chemotherapy. He lost his hair, became weak, but he kept that smile, that damn smile that broke Elena's heart. Elena prayed. Day 10. David, her husband, started losing faith. He stopped going to Mass. He said that if God existed, he wouldn't let a child suffer like this. Elena didn't argue. She just prayed. Day 15. The doctors said the tumor wasn't responding to treatment. They would need to try something more aggressive, more painful. Elena prayed. Day 20. Halfway there. Elena was exhausted. She worked at the hospital during the day, visited Miguel in the afternoon, took care of the house at night, and always, at 9 o'clock, she prayed. Some nights she could barely keep her eyes open. But she didn't stop. It was on day 20 that something started to change. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a sudden miracle. It was subtle. Elena noticed that when she prayed, she felt peace. Not a peace that took away the pain, but a peace that allowed her to breathe, to continue. As if someone was holding her, keeping her from falling apart completely. Day 25. Elena was in Miguel's hospital room. He was sleeping. She was sitting beside him, holding his small hand. And then Miguel opened his eyes, looked at her, and said, "Mommy, I had a dream. I dreamed about a beautiful lady. She had a blue dress, and she said she was going to take care of me." Elena froze. "A lady in a blue dress?" Miguel nodded. "She was kind. I wasn't afraid." Elena said nothing, but inside something stirred, a spark of hope she was afraid to feel. Day 30. More tests. The doctors were confused. The tumor wasn't growing. It wasn't shrinking, but it also wasn't growing. It was small, but it was something. Elena prayed with more fervor. Day 35. Miguel had a good day. He asked to draw. Elena brought paper and crayons. He drew a church, and next to the church, a woman in a blue dress. Elena looked at the drawing. Tears filled her eyes. She didn't ask. She just thanked God. Day 38. 2 days until the end of the promise. Elena was tired, but also different. She wasn't the same woman who started this journey 38 days ago. She had learned something she didn't expect to learn. Faith isn't about getting what you want. Faith is about trusting, even when you don't understand. Faith is about surrendering, about accepting that you don't control everything. And for the first time in her life, Elena felt peace. Real peace. Even with Miguel sick, even without guarantees, she had peace. May 3rd, 1989. Night 40. Elena was at home, alone. David had stayed at the hospital with Miguel that night. It was 9 o'clock. Elena knelt down for the last time. She picked up the Rosary and began. But this time it was different. As she prayed, she felt something, a presence, as if the room had become lighter, fuller. She didn't open her eyes. She kept praying. And then she heard it. Not with her ears, but inside. A voice, soft, feminine, full of love. "Elena, I heard you every night. I held you, and I'm holding your son." Elena froze. Tears streamed down her face. She whispered, still with her eyes closed, Who are you?" "You know who I am. You call on me every night. I am the mother who understands a mother's pain." Elena understood. Our Lady. She didn't know if it was real, if she was imagining it, if it was her tired mind. But it didn't matter, because the peace she felt was real. And then the voice said, "Your son is going to be okay. Not in the way you expect, but in the way he needs. Trust." And then silence. The presence was gone. Elena opened her eyes. She was alone, but she didn't feel alone. She finished the Rosary, put away the beads, and for the first time in 40 days, She slept in peace. The next morning, Elena received a call. It was David. His voice was strange, trembling. "Elena, you need to come to the hospital. Now." Elena felt her heart race. She ran. When she arrived at Miguel's room, the doctors were there, looking at the scans. One of them turned to her. "Mrs. Martinez, we don't understand. We did new scans this morning, and the tumor, it shrank significantly." Elena was silent. The doctor continued. "Last night, around 9 o'clock, Miguel had a spike in brain activity. It wasn't a seizure, it was different. And when he woke up this morning, he said he felt better. We thought it was psychological, but the scans show real change." Elena looked at Miguel. He was sitting up in bed, smiling. That smile. She approached, took his hand. "Miguel, what happened last night?" Miguel looked at her, his big, innocent eyes. "The lady came back, Mommy. The lady in blue. She put her hand on my head, and she said I was going to be okay." Elena couldn't speak. She just cried, hugged her son, and whispered, "Thank you. Thank you." Miguel recovered, slowly but steadily. The tumor continued to shrink. The doctors couldn't explain it. They called it spontaneous remission, a medical miracle. Elena knew what it was. Today, Miguel is 42 years old. He's a father. He works as a teacher. And every year, on May 3rd, he lights a candle for Our Lady. Elena never stopped praying the Rosary. Not every day, but whenever she needs to remember. Remember that she's not alone. Remember that God listens. Remember that there are things in this world that can't be explained, but can be felt. Some people believe in miracles. Others don't. But this story happened. Sometimes in the deepest despair, when there's nothing left to hold on to, all that remains is to kneel and speak, because someone is listening. Always has been. Elena Martinez, Los Angeles, 1989. A woman, 40 days, and a promise that changed everything. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And for those going through something difficult right now, remember, no one is alone. Never were. May God bless, and may Our Lady protect. Thank you for being here and listening to Elena's story. Stories like this one are rare. They're not told on the evening news, they're not trending on social media. But while the characters and details are fictional, the experiences they represent are very real. Stories of faith, hope, and answered prayers happen every day to ordinary people who experience extraordinary grace. If this story moved you, I invite you to join this community. Subscribe to this channel, where we share stories inspired by real experiences of faith, hope, and miracles that don't make headlines, but change lives. Leave a comment below. Tell me, have you ever experienced a moment where you felt God's presence? Have you ever made a promise in desperation and seen it answered? These moments of grace are real, and your story matters. Share it. You never know who needs to hear it. And if you know someone going through something difficult right now, someone who's lost hope, someone who needs to remember they're not alone, share this video with them. Sometimes we need to be reminded that miracles still happen, even if we hear about them through a story. New stories inspired by faith are shared here every week.
stories that will restore your hope and remind you that grace is real. Until we meet again, may God's peace be with you. And may you always remember, in your darkest hour, you are held.